Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Learning How to Better Manage SAP BI Migrations While Cutting Up to 80% of the Costs. I am Megan Souza, Marketing Manager here with DunnSolutions Group. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items. We have a slight change, we have all of our previous recordings on our website at DunnSolutions.com in the event that you missed any in the past, and today's presentation will be recorded. We will send out those recordings 24 to 48 hours after the presentation. So let's take a look at today's agenda. I will begin by doing introductions to DunnSolutions Group. From there, I will turn it over to today's first presenter, Jose Hernandez. Jose is the Director of Analytics here at DunnSolutions. Jose will discuss SAP BI BusinessObjects migration challenges, and then we'll go into optimizing your SAP BI migration. From there, we will turn it over to today's guest presenters, Gideon Smith and Pauline Lancaster from their team will take us through a demonstration of this product. So let's begin. DunnSolutions has a long history of delivering innovative business technology solutions. We are headquartered just outside of Chicago and have offices in Minneapolis, Raleigh, and Bangalore, India. Our offerings fall into two practice areas. Our application development solutions feature portals, e-commerce, and content-managed websites, mobile application development, and custom application development. Our analytics solutions feature analytics and BI platforms, as well as data warehouse and data integration. We are also authorized SAP and migrate training providers and offer classroom, virtual, private, and custom options. We believe training is important because once we deliver a solution, we want to make sure that those who need it know how to use it and maintain it. Our clients, some of which are listed here, include a combination of Fortune 500 mid-market companies, government agencies, and nonprofits across all verticals. About 80% of our business are commercial clients and 20% are nonprofit and government. We maintain strong partnerships with top technology companies in order to offer our clients the most innovative solutions available today. Our application development practice develops solutions that are custom and help differentiate our customers from their competitors. We also provide solutions on portals, e-commerce, and content-managed websites, custom transactional applications, as well as mobile applications for integration with back-end systems. Our analytics practice helps deliver information to decision makers throughout your organization so that it runs better. We can help you with decision making by not only looking into the rearview mirror, but also looking forward into the future by leveraging predictive analytics and data mining techniques. We offer a global delivery model that gives us the flexibility to build teams that are best suited to our clients' timelines, budgets, and preferences. Projects that utilize offshore resources are always led by someone local and US based. Today we do have the honor of having Gideon Smith guest present with us, and I will let them do a short introduction for themselves.
Good morning, everyone.
Bruno.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bruno from Gideon Smith. So basically today, during this session with Dunn, we'll be presenting how 360 Suite can help you to do the upgrade to BI 4.2. So just in brief about Gideon Smith. Basically today, our company was founded over 8 years ago, and we do 100% solutions for BobJ. So all the solutions 360 are strictly focused around software solutions for BobJ, and they've been developed by BobJ admins for BobJ administration. So basically every pane that you have, that's what we're working on. And on this customer list, which is non-exhaustive, you can see that we've got customers such as FedEx, TSA, Raytheon, Adobe, and you can even see in the middle somewhere that we even have SAP that actually are our customers for their own BobJ deployment. And I wanted to emphasize also that last month we've announced that the BobJ co-founder joined our company. So in terms of the 360 suite that we'll be presenting today around migration, so on the next slide. So the first solution that we have is called 360 View, and basically this is around security administration and bulk updates. So with this solution, you can basically find out very easily who's got access to what. It can be user-centric, resource-centric, and you'll see all the inherited rights. You can do bulk updates such as repointing UNV to UNX, or do your security bulk updates. The second solution we have is called 360 Plus. So basically 360 Plus is around two topics. The first one is around backup and incremental backup. So basically you can do backup and you can do incremental backup, so to come back on previous versions of your BobJ. And then the second one in 360 Plus is around promotion. So it's a great alternative to the LCM or the import wizard, and you can do like drag and drop promotion or promotion through an extra scheduler. Then we've got 360 Cast. It's around dynamic bursting. It's very easy to use and to update the filter and the prompt values and destination lists. Then we've got 360 Eyes that we'll be presenting today. So 360 Eyes got two main features. The first one is it's around metadata. So we do BI on BI. It's basically the big brother. So we'll analyze all the metadata from your CMS and your file store, and get the information that's useful. So what's being used and not used. And the second feature of 360 Eyes is around impact analysis for BobJ, but also BW and data services. And the last solution is called 360 Bind. It's around automated non-regression testing to make sure that the reports that you're migrating from one version to another had no regression. And if they do, basically we'll pinpoint you exactly where they are. So I'll pass over to Jose.
Thanks, Bruno.
So Jose, if you would like to take us into the SAP BI Business Objects Migration Challenges.
Very good. Let's get started. I want to leave enough time for the demonstration. It's way more fun to watch software. Great. So as everyone is aware, and if you're not aware, I'm going to make you aware that SAP BI 4.2 is available. 4.2, the new version of the platform, offers a whole bunch of new features. We're not going to talk about all this stuff today, but I do want to mention that we will be doing a webinar on the new features of 4.2. So if you've registered for this event, we will send you invitations to that as well. We're going to do that relatively soon, so keep an eye out for that. And basically, these features revolve around all the various tools that are part of the suite. I've highlighted some of the interesting ones, like Web Intelligence being able to do GeoMath. That's very exciting. And the concept of linked universes, that's coming back too, so that's all cool. There's also improvements on performance and stability. They've extended the SDK, and there's a whole bunch more things. So we'll take a peek at those items eventually in our next webinar. So if anyone's lived through and has already done a migration from a previous version of SAP BI or Business Objects to a newer version, the one thing that you are aware of is that there are quite a few challenges and risks that you have to contend with. If you haven't done one of these yet, let me tell you, there's a few challenges and risks that you have to contend with, and things that you have to worry about. So is my user community going to experience outages? So what content should I migrate? Should I just bring the whole thing over? Should I do some cleanup? And are some of these things actually being used? Should I go with a big bang approach, or should I phase my migration? These are all very important questions that have to be answered as you plan your migration. Now, granted, planning is very important in all this, and these are questions that need to be answered. And it's also a time to consider things that you might want to do differently in your deployment. You've learned some lessons from living with the environment for some time, so maybe you want to go revisit your security model. Maybe you want to look at some of the new features and plan for some training so to make your user community aware of some of these new features. And maybe it's time to deprecate some of the older content or some of the older functionality that SAP eventually is going to plan on deprecating. So challenges come in various forms and sizes, and you should be aware of them. All right, next slide. So having a sense that there are a variety of challenges associated with this, and that SAP migrations have been going on for quite some time, it's good to know that we have laid out a 10-step program that will help you walk through the migration process. The focus of our demonstration today is to see how the various tools from GB and Smith are going to help us with this program. And what I'd like to do really quickly is kind of walk through what are those 10 steps at a very high level, because we're actually going to talk about it in more detail as we look at the demonstration. So the first step is what we call the prepare step. And the prepare step, the very first thing you do is back everything up. And the reason you want to back everything up is because Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will, and you want to be able to revert back to your environment the way it was before you attempted to do any kind of migration. In fact, back up your environment often, regardless of whether you're doing a migration or not. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out, well, what do we got? And with the 360 eyes, we'll be able to take a snapshot of our existing environment and in very great detail so that we have a sense of here's what's going on within our current environment. So step 2 focuses on cleanup. And I cannot emphasize enough how important this step is. It's one of the most important steps. You can think of it as spring cleaning in your house. You've been collecting all kinds of fun stuff throughout the year. What you want to do is, are there things that I'm using, things that I'm not using, things that I should even bother migrating over? As an example, one of our customers that GB & Smith and DunnSolutions customer, the city of Chicago, went through a migration with the help of these tools. And when they started out, they had basically a manifest of about 130,000 reports. I want you to wrap your head around that number. There were 130,000 reports that people were using. Or were they? As it turns out, through some investigation and some cleanup, that 130 number became 70,000 that were actually needed to be migrated for one reason or another. That's a considerable reduction in the amount of stuff that we have to migrate. So it's very important that you do a cleanup. It just makes the steps down the line a little bit easier and minimizes your risk. Step 3 is basically it's a good time to optimize your deployment. And it's always a good thing to do if you're going into this effort. You want to take a look at what's going on and make sure you've optimized the way that your environment is set up and configured. Step 4, we're going to take this opportunity to look at the licensing model that we're currently using. Is it the appropriate licensing model? SAP has gone through some changes in the way they license software. Depending on when you acquired it, you may be on CPU-based licensing. And the way that they're licensing now is concurrent session and named users. So this is a good time to make sure that you have the appropriate level of licensing for the audience, and this is a good time to do that investigation. Step 5. So with any new version of any software, there is potential for things to change. And one thing that has changed in several iterations of versions of SAP software is calculation engines and things. So while my web intelligence report, for example, was working just fine in the previous version, I want to make sure that when I migrate to the new version and the new features of web intelligence that the way that things are calculated and presented are still working. So we've got to make sure we have to do impact analysis to make sure that things that could potentially be touched and affected, we want to know what those are in advance. Step 6, basically compare. We want to compare our source to target to see if everything that migrated over still looks and behaves the same. So the comparison step is very important to make sure that that people are going to have the same content that they had before they started. And 7, very important and tied to that cleanup step, is the automation of non-regression testing. Basically, I'm going to go ahead and test the reports that I moved over and make sure that they still work. And you don't necessarily want to do that manually. It's a very risky endeavor to do that manually, and so we'll use the 360 Suite tools to go ahead and automate that testing. Step 8 talks about promotion, and basically and we'll take a peek at this. This is all around taking control of your promotion management steps. So moving from dev to test and from test to prod, we'll investigate that as well. Step 9, secure. Basically, let's validate at this point in time, are the rights and restrictions that we have set up in the security model the appropriate ones? And during migration, this is a good time to verify and check that. And there is a neat feature, it's called the matrix look at security and rights that come with the 360 tools that make it easy for us to make sure that that what we think is happening, the rights that we think we have, are the appropriate rights. And finally, step 10, which leads us back a little bit to step 1, that whole backup. So we want to make sure that we implement a robust and safe backup strategy, and that we persist that throughout time. And so with that quick overview of the 10 steps, I think it's time for us to start taking a look at some of the software and how that all works. And we're handing it over
to Pauline.
To Pauline. All right, Pauline, we're going to hand over control to you. And hopefully I spoke fast enough where you have all the time you need to show us some cool software.
Okay, can you see my screen? On the steps, the migration steps. Okay. Okay,
Yes,
so I have the similar slide that Jose just showed. So the first step, each of these steps actually corresponds to a different 360 product in the suite. So we're going to go through each one of those. The first step is to prepare, and that is, that is preparing your environment, getting insights into your environment so that you know what you're dealing with, what you're going to migrate, the number of reports that you have, and which ones are being used or not used. So first, I'm in the BI Launchpad. 360 Eyes is one of the tools that actually comes with a number of jobs. These jobs extract metadata from your auditing database as well as your CMS, and then with those jobs also is delivered reports and universes, and so that you can report on that information that was extracted with the jobs. So here we are. I'm going to run this first report. Let me refresh that. Here I am extracting the data from one of my snapshots. This report actually gives you information about your users. Here you have a graph that shows the number of users you have, and you can actually see how many have never logged in yellow, and you see those that have logged in blue. So you see 5 have logged in and 66 have never logged in. You have information about document counts as well as the types of documents there are. Here you have the majority of your reports are crystal reports in blue. You can see the number of instances. So here you have majority of your reports are actually Webby instances as opposed to crystal, and then there's also programs. And there's a lot of information, so you can have details about what you actually have in your environment. Okay, and then here, let me show you another report that will actually show you some more information about the size of your environment. Where am I going? Sorry. Okay. So this document instance and volume will actually show you where the bulk of your reports are. So whether they're in your root folder, you can see the number, the count, the document count. You can see the counts in your user folders as well, the instance counts, the document size, and so you can kind of get an idea of where the majority of your reports are located. And then there's further detail about the counts of the documents in each of your folders, and then the sizes as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of the amount of documents that you have. So going back to our steps, that was step 1, preparing your environment, getting insight into your environment and what you actually have. Step 2 is the backup. This is what we recommend. Previously this was a different step, but we recommend first that you back up your environment so that when you do the upgrade and if you start cleaning up your environment, that you do have a way to restore if you accidentally delete something. So here we are in the 360 suite. In this 360 view, there's actually a product called 360 Plus that will back up each of your documents. You have the ability to back up all your reports, all your users, documents, everything. And if you need to, you can always go back and restore. So this is one of the tools that will help you with that. it makes it very easy to back up your environment. So that is step 2. Going back to the migration steps, step 3 is to pinpoint. This is where we identify any unused reports, unused universe objects, and any duplicated reports so that we can figure out where we can actually eliminate items in our environment to reduce the amount that we're going to upgrade. Going back to 360 Eyes, these reports will give you that information. Okay, so here, going into this folder, there's user activity. I can run a report that will show me documents that were last used. So here's a list of all of my documents. You have the number of actions on those documents and whether there was any action on the documents. So here you see there's a number of documents that have never been touched in my environment. Now, if I were you, you can decide maybe you want to archive these, maybe you don't want to upgrade them. If they're not being used, there's no sense in spending time migrating them and making sure they're working properly if no one's ever running them. So here now we find some documents that are used. So here this one was used once, and it also shows you the date and the number of actions on that document. So this report will give you information about what's actually being accessed in your environment. So they're not being used at all, and only 72 of objects in that particular universe are actually used. So this is a way you can identify, exactly what's being used. Maybe you can eliminate these objects in your universe so you're not continuing to maintain them and reducing, the number of objects you're maintaining and also upgrading, because you may be upgrading and having to modify objects that no longer work. When you upgrade to 4.2, maybe they no longer work, but if they're not being used in any report, there's no sense in continuing to maintain them. So this will give you that information, and you can drill down into detail as to which objects are being used. So here is more detail showing each of the universes and the object name and whether they're used. So here you can see that this last snapshot object is not used, and then this snapshot CMS is actually used 75 times. So it might be used, multiple times in one report, but it also may be used in 75 different reports. So those are objects that are going to impact the most number of reports. So maybe don't focus on the objects that aren't used at all. So that gives you some insight into that. Another thing, you have the ability to track duplicated reports. A lot of users will take reports that are published to public documents and save them into their documents. Some people just like to run reports from their own folder. So you can run this report and actually see that you have multiple copies of the same report in different locations. There's basically like a fingerprint that shows whether the report is exactly the same or not. Even if it's been named differently, 360 Eyes can identify that. So here we can see that this particular report has 2 copies. So maybe we only focus on testing the reports that are in the public folders and not reports that are maybe in the user folders. So here, this new Asia Cells report, there's 3 copies of it. 2 are in user folders and one's in in the public folders, so we know just if we do need to make changes with that report or to test that report, we only test the one in the public folders, and if any changes need to be made, the user can get a new copy of the report. But you'll find this is useful because this is something that a lot of users do, copying over public reports. Okay, so that is pinpointing. That's pinpointing items in your environment that are candidates for removal or focusing on what needs to be cleaned up. So the next step is cleanup, and that is done in 360 view. Okay, so here we are on 360 view, and I'm going to my users tab, and here you have a list of all your user groups. You can actually see right away that a lot of these user groups don't have any users in them, so maybe I want to remove them. So here's some cleanup that you can do. You can click on the groups that you want to remove, and you can actually bulk delete the groups. So that's one way you can clean up your environment. You also have the ability to go to objects, and with there's a number of tasks that are here where you can actually update Webby universes. So this is if you're moving from UNV universes to UNX, there is a conversion tool to migrate those universes from UNV to UNX that SAP provides. However, once you've converted your universe to UNX, your reports are still pointing to the UNV universe. There's no way to update those. We had a customer that had thousands of reports that they needed to update to their UNX universes, and you have to basically go in individually to each of the reports and point each data provider to the UNX universe in order to update those, and that could be very time consuming depending on the number of reports you have. So you have the ability to actually use this feature. You can enter your new ID, your old UNV ID, your UNX ID, and then the folder, and you can actually bulk update documents from the UNV to UNX universe. And with the Schedule tab, we have a number of jobs that you can do that will actually allow you to clean up your environment as well. If you come here, there's a job type, and there's a number of items here where you can purge users. Let's see, you've got the ability to purge folders, purge Webbies, looking for purging inboxes, clear inboxes, so users over time save documents in their inboxes, and typically they would save them off, and so maybe you want to clean up your inboxes. You can go through and purge inboxes, delete empty groups, those kinds of things. So you have these can be scheduled to be automated. And also deleting instances, those kinds of things, so that you're paring down your environment so you don't have so many documents when you do the upgrade, because the more you have, the longer the upgrade will actually take. Okay. The next step is step 5, and that's defining the license pool. And are some reports in 360 Eyes, going back to the Launchpad. There are reports that will identify there's a recycle licenses report that will show you that information. So if you're changing, maybe you're considering changing from CPU or concurrent users, you can see how many users have never connected, how many users have already connected, the connection time, and the user type. You get some more information about the users that have logged in more detail, and then you can kind of determine whether, how many you actually need. If you really the max number of users you have are at any given time is maybe 100 users, then you don't need a concurrent user license for 500 users. So that could maybe eliminate the licenses that you have. So you can also run this report for session. It's called the session peak, so it'll show you what the max session. So here 9 is actually the max number of users we have. So in this example, you would only need 9 concurrent licenses. So it would give you some information about your average users throughout the day and really what your licensing needs are. Okay, so that was step 5. Now going to step 6 is impact analysis, and this is identifying any calculation engine changes or modified objects. Okay, and that again is 360 eyes can give you that information. So maybe you've identified an area that's changing and you want to know where this may be occurring on your platform. Sorry, wrong. So here, this impact analysis report will actually allow you to identify, here I'm running my report, I've selected these snapshots that I've run. You can actually say, okay, I know that I am changing a few objects. With the upgrade, these objects are being modified, or I already have identified that they're causing problems. And you can actually, so I've selected 3 universe objects, and this report actually shows me where these objects are found in my environment, so which reports contain those objects. So here I have a list of reports that have all of those objects, so I can narrow down which reports are going to be impacted by that change. The other item that you can do, is actually looking at the SQL. So if you know you're modifying a database column, or you know that something is changing in your environment, you can run this report and let's see, you can actually see where they're impacted by a particular change to a database, to SQL. Let's see if I can get some data back. Okay, so this gives me the document name and the data provider that's impacted by a particular change once I've narrowed down what's being changed. If you know maybe a particular change is being made to variables, maybe the count if variable is no longer working, you've identified that as an issue with your upgrade, you can actually determine which reports contain that particular code in the variables. Sorry, I'm not getting any data back. And actually identify which reports are impacted by that change. And here you have a list of reports that are impacted, the document type, and actually the variable, so you see exactly where that is. Often you don't know if there are users creating lots of ad hoc reports, or you don't have good documentation on your reports. You don't know what is in those reports as far as the variables, and this gives you insight into what types of variables you have and what's being impacted by the changes. Okay, going back to the steps, the 7th step is actually to compare. So you can compare over time if you you can determine how you want to migrate. So sometimes people don't want to freeze their production environment and say no changes can be made, no updates to universes, no new reports while you're doing the upgrade. If it takes 3 months, that's an impact on end users. So maybe you want to start the upgrade, but continue to let your users make changes in their environment. So you can actually do a comparison on any changes with universes when you're ready to upgrade, and so you can see what exactly the impact is, what needs to be updated. So this report is a compare of universes. So here I've run this for 2 snapshots. So I took a snapshot before my migration, and now I'm ready to migrate my production environment. I've taken another snapshot, and here I can do a comparison of anything that's been changed since then, so I know what needs to be updated before I go live with the upgrade. So that gives you over time what's been changed in your environment. And you can also compare documents. So if any reports, if you've made modifications to reports, here my first snapshot, this first column is my snapshot 54, which was done on February 11th, and then my snapshot 57 was done on March 12th, and here I can tell exactly which reports are different. This specific report didn't exist in my old environment, and now it's in my new environment, and vice versa. So here you have a list of reports that actually have changed because they have a different fingerprint on them. So this allows you to continue these kinds of reports will actually allow you to let your platform continue to be live while you're in progress of migrating. Okay, now going on to step 8 is to qualify your environment, and this is the automated regression testing, and this is probably the most important step to make sure that your migration, make sure there's no regressions between your old and new migration. A lot of times you don't have a lot of time to test every report in your environment, especially if you have thousands of reports. So typically what people do is identify, the most used reports and then test those, and maybe those don't have any impact, but others do, and you don't want your users to be the ones finding the issues with your reports. So there's a 360 tool called Bind that will allow you to run the regressions against. You can compare your 3.1 reports. Say you're upgrading from 3.1 to 4.2. You can run the reports in 3.1. They're extracted as XML, so they can easily be compared. And then you run your reports again, extract them in 4.1, and then you can compare them. This tool gives you the ability to identify any changes, any differences in the reports. So here I'm going to do a comparison. I've already done my export, my extraction from 3.1 and 4.1. I have the ability to compare data, compare structure, compare style. If I want, I can compare images. If I'm doing Desky to Webby comparison, this would be my selections, this binding selection. Now I'm going to submit this. And here I get my results. So it shows me these documents. There are 10 documents that are matching in green, so those all are exactly the same in the 2 environments. And then I have 3 documents that are different, so they have differences. This is my analytical view, and it'll give me lots of details about the reports. I can switch to a report view, and here I can actually go through these reports, and highlighted in red are any differences. So here the data are actually different in these reports, so it's immediately telling me there's something that's changed. Maybe it's a calculation engine, maybe it's something else. So these reports, the goal is these reports are run off the same data set using the same prompts, so that we're ensuring that we're retrieving the same data for both sets of reports. So this is highlighting differences. If there's a calculation engine change, something's not working in a function, or there's something else that's changed, we can identify that. Here's some more changes in our reports. It can also pinpoint areas on a graph that maybe you won't see with your eyes. If you're doing comparisons, doing Alt-Tab or comparing your reports yourself, you may not see them because after looking at a number of reports, they all start to look the same, and you start thinking that everything looks okay. But this will sort of eliminate any human error and give you the information that you need so that you can be sure that there are no changes in your reports, that you're finding them. So these reports, decimal places were added, actually were removed. And then the next step is to promote. So this is, there is a 360 tool that gives you the ability to promote. You can do, there's a drag and drop. You can also schedule promotions. With the promotion management tool in 4.0 or 4.1, there is a limit on the number of objects that you can migrate, and this tool does not have that limit. It allows you to migrate as many as you want. So maybe you're setting up a whole new environment with 4.2 and you want to migrate your users from one to another. If you have 2,000 users, it would take you, you'd have to do it, I think the limit is 100 objects per promotion. So it will eliminate that issue. And the last step is step 10, and that's security. So you want to maybe do a comparison of your security. 360 Eyes will actually allow you to do that. Let's see. I'm getting close. So here I have a snapshot 32 and 42, and I can see that there were no differences. All of my groups are across the top and my folders across the left, and where it's highlighted, the security rights have changed. And here I can immediately see, okay, there are changes, and I can actually go into 360 view, back to 360 view, and make modifications if needed. 360 view gives you a matrix of security. You have the ability to select your folders, select your groups. I'm going to select my marketing group. And then I can also select my folders on the right-hand side. Oh. Someone said I dropped. Can you guys still hear me? Can everybody still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfect.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I saw, okay. Okay, so here I'm generating my matrix. So by selecting my groups and my folders, at the bottom I actually can see that there is no security on this group, and I actually have the ability to add security from here. Maybe I want everyone to have view on demand, and I actually apply security, and you can see that the security is inherited right away. You can see the dark text shows you the explicit rights that have been granted, and then you actually see the inherited rights on the lower security groups. You won't get this view in the CMC, and it takes a lot of clicks just to apply security. So using 360 Eyes, you can see if there were any changes with your migration, any changes to security, and then you have an easy way with 360 View to actually implement any changes that are needed with your security. Okay, so that was all the steps. We went through all 10 steps. these tools will give you the ability to, get insight into your environment, determine where you can actually remove items, so you're reducing the amount of documents and reports and universe objects that you have to upgrade, and will save you a lot of time with your migration. At this point, I can hand it back over to Jose. Is that Jose? Do you want me to hand it over to you?
We are making the switch right now. And by the way, let me do a sound check. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right, good. So the one thing I have to say before we dive into the formal slide here is we've done migrations without these tools. We've done migrations with these tools. And I have to tell you, it is possible to do a migration without having these tools. You have to know exactly where to go query. You have to know exactly what to go look for. It's quite an arduous adventure. You can see here by the demonstration how easy it is to get this information by either through the application itself or through running some reports. It just saves so much time and effort. And in fact, to the point of migrations are safer, and you can do them considerably quicker using 360 suite of tools and following these 10 steps. So you simply have more control. Everything's more secure. The amount of documentation and auditing of your environment that you get through this tool gives you that security blanket that you actually know what's going on. If you think about being aware of things that change, being aware of potential got-yous in advance or during the migration process, you're going to have way less issues at the tail end. So post-migrations, you're going to have less trouble, less things to contend with. A variety of the risks that are associated with migrations are mitigated simply by letting you know what's going on, letting you know what content's out there, letting you know what's changed, letting you know what users are actually using. It's so beneficial to have this information. And the result that at the end that I can go back and make sure that everything is consistent, everything is accurate, it's just unbelievable. The cost savings in time and grief are well worth the investment in getting these tools. Even if you just purchase these tools for the purpose of a migration, it's money well spent. But what you'll notice during the demonstration is that as you're administering your environment beyond the migration, think about how easy administration is when you have access to this information. It's just a real good time and grief saver. Okay, so that said, you know that SAP BI 4.2 is available and it's out there, and I do recommend that people start planning for a move to 4.2. Any new customers that we have that are deploying the SAP BI platform, we are starting them out in 4.2 instead of using the 4.1 environment. So if you're out there on 4.1, you might want to start considering making this. There's a lot of improvements in that platform. And these migrations are complex, and I want to note a couple of things. Planning is the biggest part of this, and in that planning, having tools like the 360 suite make it so much easier to contend with. I also want to mention that organizations and people that are out there that have an SAP BI environment, you've probably gotten pretty good at administering it yourself, doing your backups and so on, and you feel very comfortable in regards to this. I want you to consider not taking on these migrations yourself. It's not your core business. It's not what you do. It's not fun. I'd rather that you reach out to us and talk to us about doing the migration with you and letting us carry the bulk of the load. So what we would do is we'd recommend that you purchase the 360 suite of tools as a toolkit for the migration, and obviously as a toolkit to go beyond the migration, and then work with us to actually invoke the 10 steps and take you through the whole thing. Let our guys who've done migrations for years do all that for you. I'll reiterate, it's not fun to do migrations. Don't waste your time doing it. Hand it off to somebody else to take care of that for you. So The other thing that I do want to mention before we get into some Q&A, and I think we have some questions and a little list of questions. All right, that's cool. Is I want to put out there a special offer. Anybody that reaches out to DunnSolutions Group within the month of May to purchase the 360 suite of tools, we will offer you the first 6 months of maintenance at no charge. So you heard it here. 6 months of maintenance at no charge. It's going to save you some money. It's a good thing. And purchasing these tools and learning how to use them and using them is going to save you a lot of time throughout the year. So it's a very good investment. It's a very good opportunity that you should take advantage of. So I think what we're going to do is there's some questions. And Megan, if you want to toss out the questions, and we'll see between the panel and I if we can answer them now. And if not, we'll get back to everyone with the appropriate answers. So what do we got first?
Certainly. So around step 2, we did have a question. It said this is assuming an upgrade is in place. Is that correct?
All right. So there's an in-place upgrade. I assume they mean the ability to install a BusinessObjects platform on top of an existing BusinessObjects platform. And typically we don't do that. So I think any of the steps that you've seen so far typically assumes that you're going to have 2 environments, your existing environment and your new environment that you will be migrating the content over.
Okay. If anyone else has any more questions, please feel free to type those in the chat box. Thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Jose and Pauline, for your presentations. And I will let you all know as soon as we have more questions.
All right, very good. Once again, after this presentation, if you come up with a question that you didn't think of asking at the time, you have some email addresses on the screen right now. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. And it was certainly a pleasure having everyone here. Let me thank the team over at GBN Smith. Love the demonstration. It gets me all excited about using the tool itself. So thanks, everyone, and have a good afternoon.